Hey, and welcome to the tutorial on WoW tanking, tips and tricks for saving time in heroics from bybaylor.com. Today, we will be talking about 3 different techniques for skipping over bosses in heroics, and a faster way to pull mobs in certain instances. It should be noted that skipping bosses in certain instances can save as much as 5 minutes from particular runs due to having pulled trash to the boss, or having to sit through a boss's phases. It is up to the tank to decide whether it is worth the extra badges that one gets from killing bosses, or if the 2 extra badges at the end of the daily random are enough to satisfy their quota. That being said, let's start. In Utgard Keep, the first 2 bosses can actually be skipped by running around them. The first boss can be avoided after downing the adds in the same room by running along the wall to the right side. For this boss, however, it might be worth it to pull the boss with the mobs. The next boss can actually be skipped by hugging the wall to the left. The 2 bosses appear to be guarding the stairs, but apparently are too busy conversing with each other to see an entire party sneak past them along the walls. While party members can actually get closer to the bosses than this, it is unadvisable with a pug. Next, let's talk about mount pulls. Another technique that can be used for saving time is a mount pull. When a party is in an outside part of an instance, land mounts can be used. One simply needs to corral the mobs at the end of a pull to keep aggro on them, and several pulls can be grouped into one, saving not only travel time, but DPS cooldowns and stacks. In this particular mount pull in Utgard Keep, one needs to be aware of the caster that will camp at the top of the stairs. This mob will be the one most likely targeting the party's healer. While this pull is not great for a tank's overall DPS, it saves the time of pulling 3 separate mobs and runtime. If one is feeling brave and geared, one can actually pull the mobs all the way to the boss. Drakthar Keep shows us another type of boss pull. By running past the first boss, through the doorway on the other side, one will reset the boss. From here, one just needs to be ready to immediately pull the spiders waiting in the next room. The second boss in DTK uses the strategy of going around the boss to skip him. If one wants to finish the boss, a time-saving tip is to go to the next room and pull the bats and then the boss. This same strategy can be used in Utgard Pinnacle in the first boss, where one can run downstairs and pull the mobs and run back up and pull the boss. Here is a mount pull for DTK. Right out of the bat room, one can mount up. Technically, one can ride all the way up to the boss, but since it is difficult to control that many adds and survive, a small pull to the top of the stairs can be a time saver and help position oneself to be ready to chain pull the next mobs. It should be noted that some mount pulls require bosses to be down first before they will work. For example, in Pit of Sauron, one can mount up and ride to the cave. However, the cave entrance will not be open unless both the first 2 bosses have been downed. Therefore, the mount pull needs to start after the second boss is down. This particular mount pull is interesting because one can actually use the pull to skip past all the groups on the way to the cave. This footage only shows the skipping of the first 2 mobs on the hill, but if one proceeds along the left side and rides on the hills to the left, one can skip the next set of adds as well. The last type of boss skip we will talk about is the use of a fading technique. Rogues and hunters have the ability to run to bosses and use vanish or feign death to reset a boss. If one is using a hunter, be sure to have them dismiss their pet before doing it. As one can see, this technique will not work on every boss because of the limitations of the layout of an instance. In the first boss of Azjol-Nerub, one can reset the boss but cannot pass him because of the exit is webbed off. A similar obstacle is put in place in the boss in Old Kingdom. The fading technique actually does work on the second boss of Azjol-Nerub. This skip can save up to 5 minutes in fight time and trash pulling. On this particular pull, it is important to make sure that the hunter or the rogue has feigned death or vanished before following them in. If the boss happens to respawn while the party is still running, the party can still jump through the hole in the bottom of the webbing and skip to the next area. Thanks for watching this video. As always, if anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free to post.